Welcome everyone. If you followed my gmc-jam 36 devlog, then in the final entry you've already seen how the game looks like and the fact that you can actually customize the JSON files to influence how characters and interactions are generated. So in this video, I will basically show you how to customize each one of those JSON files and the impact in the game. So if you just run the game, so with the default dataset, then you have this introduction, you say, yes sir, you generate a few characters and you just have the same interaction that has hiking in this case and just hiking again because apparently it's really fun. And yeah, here's going to visit the homeless shelter and yeah, just basically the normal interaction that you get when you play the default dataset. So you might have seen there were like different names being chosen. So let's start then customizing the data. So let's start actually with the names because it's pretty simple. So you have this huge list of names and you can actually just change this to have a single name, for example, except that I think this will, no, this actually should work. I wasn't sure because it will depend on how I pick it, but now that I think of it, I'm pretty sure it will work. So yeah, based on my previous level entries, let's just choose Nocturne to see how confusing this gets. So I changed it, I saved it. I'm just going to rerun the game. Let's play, same introduction, and now Nocturne is going to check out people hurting animals, apparently, and apparently he really likes it. Okay. Note this is not actually Nocturne, this is just a randomly generated character named Nocturne. But basically you can see the same interaction, and now he says bye, and it goes to the second character, but in this case, since you only have one name, it's always Nocturne. So if you actually just skip all of the interactions until the scoring, okay, you see that one Nocturne dislikes you and the other Nocturne likes you. So yeah, I highly advise against having the same name. Do note that you should have at least a few names because the way I pick names is by shuffling the list of all of the available names and then just picking one, which means that if you only have 2 or 3 names, it might end up picking the same. Yes, I should have done it in a more robust way, but I didn't have time to do it. But yeah, let's revert the list so that we have a little bit more variety. And let's actually look at the static text. So this is only for the introduction. So in the text key, you have all of the introductory text, and in the answer, you have basically the neutral answer that you get. So you can change this to be, for example, honey, let's move to the neighboring town. If that's what you want, love. I don't know, just some random thing. And if you run it now, yes, the introduction now changed, and it's basically what you picked. And now we have Susanna and whoever else got generated. So just gonna revert that. Okay. So now it starts going into the more interesting aspects of the generation. So the way it works is you have a personality being generated for each character, and that personality is basically by picking a few tags from this tags.json file. So here you have an array of arrays, basically. Each array represents a group of tags, and from within that group, you have mutually exclusive tags. So in the first group, we have a group for the intent of the character, and you can see it has two possibilities, either a good-willed or a malicious character, and only one of these gets picked for a character. Do note that, unfortunately, since I didn't customize or I didn't allow the settings to be customized, if I'm not mistaken, only 2 tags are picked per personality. So even if you have 30 different tags, it's just going to pick 2 groups, and from those groups pick a tag. So if you have a lot of content, it's probably going to end up just generating a lot of characters that are always going to be neutral when it comes to the interactions, unless you have very extensive terms mapping to all of those tags, which I'll show after. But yeah, we can just change all of this all we want, and add some new tags if we want. For example, let's say that for a self view you have confident and doubtful, and you also have, by the way, this self view prefix is not really necessary. I just add it so that within a group you can easily check what the tags are meant to mean. But yes, apologize for my cell phone just beeping all over the place. But yeah, let's say there's confident, doubtful, and careless. Basically, you just don't care about yourself. So yeah, you can add all of these tags, but currently this tag won't really have any impact. So you can come to the terms, and terms is basically just either words or phrases that characters will react to, and they're organized in categories. So you have a JSON dictionary that has as keys the category for a specific term, and that value will then be itself a dictionary where the keys are the actual terms, and the values will then be a mapping of the tag to how much importance the character with that tag gives to that specific term. So you can see, for example, when it comes to the action of helping others, a good-willed character has a very strong positive influence towards it, and the malicious has a somewhat weak negative influence towards it. There's no validation to these numbers, so you could, if you want to, just put an absurdly high number here, but either you would change then all of the weights in all of the terms, or it would just be very unbalanced. But there's no validation, so you can just put whatever you want. But yes, you can see, for example, for the self view, there's actually no current terms that have an impact. So let's just start adding some. For example, let's say going to the gym as a negative impact on the self view doubtful. I think that's correct, right? Let's just copy to make sure. Yeah, okay. And I don't know, let's say it has like -2 as well. For the careless, it doesn't really matter, and for the confident, it has basically the opposite impact. And for the homeless shelter, let's say that basically the careless individual doesn't care about itself, but it will always care about homeless people. So let's put a small impact on that. And we can also go to the interactions, and this is a little bit more complex. By the way, I'm not showing these individual changes because they're very subtle during the game. You can't actively see what their impact is unless you were actually debugging the game. So I'm just gonna do all of the changes and then show in a more explicit way what their impact is. So for interactions are quite complex. So first, the root is a list, because you'll just have a list of all of the possible interactions. Then when you go for an interaction itself, it has two keys, the categories and the sequence. Categories are linking to these terms, and they must exist. There's no validation, but if you try to use a non-existent one, you'll probably get an undefined somewhere. And it's basically these root keys here. And what you're saying here is that you'll be using three different terms. The first one of the action category, as well as the second one, and the third one is from the place category. When the game generates an interaction, it will replace each one of these categories by an actual term randomly picked from that category. So you saw during the playthrough that, for example, we had twice hiking. That's because it randomly picked the same action for both. But in other playthroughs, you probably noticed that there were different actions. For example, the herding animals one. And place can be, for example, the gin that was displayed, which is defined here. So yeah, you basically define all of the categories that are going to be used. And again, I mentioned that this is loaded directly into memory, which is why it's not the most user-friendly to edit this file right now. But that's what it is. In a post-jam version, there's probably going to be much better ways of editing all of this. But yeah, then you have the actual sequence of the interaction. So the sequence is an array of the several steps that make up the sequence. And each step will basically have some text that's displayed with the character name on top, basically what the character is telling you, and the possible answers that particular step has. So you can see here all of the textual elements are actually arrays because they can contain references to these terms that will be resolved. So in the array, you can have strings and integers, and this integer is just directly indexing this list here. So 0 will be the first term that gets replaced, 1 will be the second one, 2 will be the third one, so forth. So in this case, we only have 3, but yeah, you get the picture. So yeah, you can just put whatever text you want here. And then you have the answers. Answers, there's only two possibilities. You either have a dictionary with a plus and a minus key, or you have a dictionary with a 0 key. And as you might have guessed, if you have a 0 key, then it's a neutral response. So you just place directly what the neutral response is, and there's no reaction by the character. So in this case, it's just saying goodbye, and you just answer bye, and that's the end of the step. If there was another step afterwards, it would move to the next one, but in this case, there's no step, so yeah, it just finishes this interaction. And when you have a plus or minus, you're defining basically the positive response and the negative response. The positive response is the one that shows up on the right of the screen, the negative on the left. And Here you basically then need to have text as well, so the text that's displayed in the answers. In this case, this interaction that's provided by default doesn't have any references to the terms that got replaced. But as you can see, it's an array as well. So you could also change this to be, for example, sure, I love, and then just put 0 and this. And then whatever term got picked here, it would be replaced here. And the same for the negative, you also have a text entry that will be basically the text displayed for the answer. Now, when you have positive and negative answers, these will impact the way the character feels towards you. So the impact will basically relate to whatever term is actually used throughout, or terms are used throughout this text, and how the character feels towards them. So if the character feels positively towards the term that's defined here, and you answer with a positive answer, then it will have a positive reaction. However, if the character doesn't care about this term, answering with a positive answer will trigger a negative reaction. And if it's just indifferent, it will trigger a neutral reaction. And basically the reverse for the neutral one. So if the character doesn't care about this term, it will trigger the positive reaction, and yeah, you get the idea. It's basically just a mathematical multiplication of the signs. So yeah, you can then customize all of this, and again, you can use whatever terms you want here, but in this case, the answer to a reaction is always the ellipsis, so the 3 dots. It's basically like, okay, the character said something, you replied to that something, the character reacts, giving the player a hint towards what their personality is like, and then the character just continues the speech, basically. So yeah, so that's it. This is the default interaction, which, by the way, since I changed it to this, we can already see the effects of this change. So if I just run it, just skip this, and you can see now that it actually says I love reading a book, which was what was selected here. But let's actually change the sequence now, because I added here the self view to the place, and I added also an extra self view. So let's actually just change all of this. So let's remove this. Okay, so let's put a sequence with just one step, which oh, by the way, I don't think I mentioned it, but you can also just refer to multiple terms on the same step. And basically the overall score for that step will be the sum of what the feelings of the character are towards all of those terms. And if you repeat the same term, it's actually counted twice. That's currently a bug slash feature. I wanted to just use unique terms, but I didn't have time to add that constraint. So currently, if you just refer to a term multiple times, it just enhances how strongly the character will react to what you pick. So yeah, let's just say text, and for simplicity's sake, let's just say place 0, 0, place 1. Let's just do this in a slightly different way. Okay, place 1, and now let's do place 2 and 2. Okay, so this will just display all the places. And now let's go to answers, and let's go for the positive one. Let's put the text, short, reactions. Let's put positive reaction. Oh, forgot that. And the positive reaction is just going to be, I don't know, like +1. The neutral reaction is just going to be 0. And the negative reaction is just going to be, as you might have guessed it, -1. So yeah. By the way, this is not +1 score. The score is actually dictated by the strength of the feelings. This is just for the exemplary text. And now for the negative one, we're just going to do nope and just keep the same reactions. Or let's just add a minus here and a plus here so that you can validate that it's actually triggering different reactions. So yeah, and that's going to be the whole sequence. So if I didn't make any mistake in the structure, as I said, the structure is kind of complex, and I did make an error. So yeah, I deleted everything and started fresh. So you probably shouldn't do that. So you probably should just edit an existing sequence. So let me actually see if Visual Studio Code can undo that power. Okay, it can. So what was my mistake? There's text here, yes, which things, and then answers, and okay. The problem was that I named it reactions instead of reaction. So that's why it failed. So yeah, I highly advise against just editing an existing, the existing interaction of JSON instead of writing it fresh. But yeah, my bad. So okay, so Driyama, or however you actually say that name, has place 0 hurting animals, which did I? Wait, I know what happened. Yeah. Problem is that I undid all of my changes, so this went back to action. Yeah, my bad. It was kind of weird that hurting animals was a place. But yeah, okay, so now it's homeless shelter, homeless shelter, homeless shelter, so it actually picked the same one all 3 times. There's only 2, so it always shuffles the possibilities and picks the first one. That's why it's quite probable that this happens. But yes, you have Andy, so just going to answer positively, and it had a positive response. So you know that Andy basically likes the homeless shelter. So now Wilmina something has 2 gyms and 1 shelter. So if I say nope, okay, so gyms showed up twice, so their score probably was stronger than the homeless shelter one, which means that actually she likes gym, and since you said no, it had a negative reaction. So now we have Andy again, and since he liked the homeless shelter, I'm just going to say nope on this one, and as you can see, that was the correct reply. And in this case, it's twice gym again and once homeless shelter, and due to the previous situation, we know that this is actually not correct. So turns out that Wilhelmina apparently just doesn't like anything. But yeah, Andy now dislikes you, and Wilhelmina has no feelings towards you. Although, why does Andy dislike? Okay, I don't know. There might be some bug here, not entirely sure. But basically, this gives you an idea of how to customize these things. The bug might be actually on the fact that I used multiple terms because I didn't have the possibility of testing that thoroughly. So might be that when you use multiple terms, the sum doesn't, the feelings doesn't really work very well. So maybe just stick to one term instead of multiple ones. But yeah, hopefully this gives you an idea of how to customize it. And I rambled a lot. Hopefully you can actually understand anything of what I said. And I just didn't make it any more confusing. But if it's confusing, you can always hit me up on the GMC forum and just send me a private message or something, and I can explain it to you how to edit this more clearly. So yeah, just have fun.